The Woman in Cabin 10 just dropped on Netflix. It's starring Keira Knightley, and I have thoughts. So if you loved Ruth Ware's 2016 blockbuster, or you're just here for the moody yacht thriller vibes, I'm sharing my honest reviews on the book, then we'll get into the movie, the differences between the book and the movie, including major plot changes that the author, Ruth Ware herself, actually said she liked. And look, if she likes it, I love it. But I still have opinions on these changes, and we're going to cover it all. So like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into the book review. Ruth Ware's The Woman in Cabin 10 was everywhere in 2016. And honestly, it still comes up all the time in thriller recommendations almost a decade later. People like to call Ware a modern Agatha Christie, and I get that with some of her books, but for me, this one is actually less Christie-esque. This is more of a claustrophobic, voice-driven, psychological thriller where we're trapped inside Lo's head, and she's on a luxury yacht where she thinks she saw a woman thrown overboard. Except there's no record of that woman ever being on board in the first place. Now, what the book does brilliantly is it gives us atmosphere and paranoia like no other. The sea is kind of like this shifting mirror that you can't trust what you're seeing, and you really can't trust what you're feeling either. So Lo's perspective is very jittery, messy, and she's a bit of an unreliable narrator, and I feel that's the point, because it's one of those read in 2 sittings over a weekend thriller. It's very propulsive, but it still lingers and it will have you thinking. Now let's get into the Netflix adaptation and what worked and what didn't. Now we do have to talk about our lead actor, Keira Knightley. I really think she's a strong Lo, but in this version, she starts out way more put together than the Lo in the book, because she's an award-winning journalist, she's confident, she's flirty, and less trauma-forward at first, which kind of makes it easy for you to warm up to her on screen. But can we talk about the film's aesthetic? It's so dark, like aggressively dark and teal and greyish and just shadow on dark kind of vibes. I mean, have you noticed the hallway scenes, how everyone is kind of hiding? We're never really in full daylight. It's just very dark, both morally and literally. But my biggest problem is actually the pacing, because the movie starts slow, and it's not the tense, simmering slow. It's more like I am forcing myself to watch this slow, and the book throws suspects at you early, where the movie takes longer to kind of build that lineup. Now, once there's an attempt on Lo's life, the energy spikes on the back half, and the movie starts to move. But I felt that first act really drag. However, Keira Knightley anchors it. Guy Pearce gives a slick menace, and Hannah Waddingham is criminally underused. I wanted more Dame Heidi. However, as a standalone Netflix thriller, it is watchable, it is stylish. I feel as an adaptation, it really externalizes what the book keeps internal. And who knows, maybe that is the point. But let me know, what do you think so far? Are you team book or are you leaning towards the Netflix version? Drop your takes in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where you land, especially before we start to dive into the major changes. All right, so let's get into the major changes. And fun fact, author Ruth Ware is a fan of one of these changes. And like I said earlier, if she likes it, I love it. But here's what makes this adaptation absolutely fascinating, because not everything is just a tweak. Some are fundamental shifts that really change the entire experience. The first major change is Lo's character arc. Now in the book, Lo's anxiety and trauma are front and center from page 1. Now in the film, they completely flip this. She starts off confident and successful and then gets pushed into vulnerability. So the result is that it's less internal uncertainty and more outward confrontation. And I believe this is a smart screen choice. Now the second major change is the ending showdown, and this is Ruth Ware's favorite change, because in the book, Lo never gets the direct face-off with her main antagonist, but the film keeps it on screen, makes it public, makes it visible, with Lo forcing a reckoning. Now I have seen online that author Ruth Ware said that she loves this change because Lo finally gets her moment, and this is the change that surprised her. The third major change is Richard's expanded motive, because in the book, he's driven by greed, where in the movie, it gives the vibe that he's protecting a corrupt legacy, which is his wife's foundation and his empire, which I kind of think is a very modern villain-esque kind of vibe. Change number 4 is public versus private resolution, because in the book, everything is resolved in secrecy, where in the film, it goes big. We have this big dockside confrontation, and I think you lose the chill, however, you do gain closure. Another major change is that the gaslighting was super amplified, because in the book, Lo battles everything in her mind. In the film, she battles a room full of people who've clearly decided that she's wrong. And when you watch their faces in the scene, it truly is chilling. Change number 6 is the sea as a plot engine, because on the page, the ocean blurs perception. It has a huge role, but on screen, it's purely a mechanism to hide crimes. It nearly kills Lo, but then it spits the truth back up. So with all those changes in mind, I'm really thinking about which version handled the mystery better. So here's the thing, if you're here for suspects, subplots and that classic everyone's lying carousel, the book wins easily. It's tighter, it's trickier, and it's more interested in how perception distorts reality. However, if you want momentum and payoff, you can watch the film, and that will also give you a cleaner arc and a firmer conclusion. But it sacrifices the texture, and especially the early pacing was a huge problem for me. So my verdict is, even though this book came out in 2016, I will still give it 4 out of 5 stars because it is a conversation starter almost a decade later. And I do want to point out, this is not Ruth Ware's most Agatha Christie-like book for me, and I'm an Agatha Christie stan, but it's one of her most talked about for a reason. Now, the Netflix film, I will rate it 2, maybe 2.5 stars out of 5. We have a great lead performance, it has a sleek look, it has a stronger final act, but the pacing drags and the suspect bench is slim. But for me, I felt this beautiful yacht ran aground. I almost felt like I could hear the propeller screeching on some rocks in the bottom of that water. But if you're in the mood for a glossy, one-sitting yacht thriller, you can queue it up. And if you want the paranoia to really crawl under your skin, I'm going to send you to read the book. But let me know in the comments if you are team book or team movie for The Woman in Cabin 10. I'm a book first vote here, and if you've experienced both mediums, tell me which ending you prefer and why. Do you prefer the book's hushed ambiguity or the film's public reckoning? I'm genuinely curious where you land. You don't have to agree with me. Again, all points of view are welcome here. And if you haven't already, now's a great time to like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know what's new when I go live and when new videos are uploaded. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.